This evening, Budget 2022. The government delivered the nation's largest budget to date. A pair of laborers and a construction worker were charged with larceny and armed robberies. The Guyana Police Force continues to rid the streets of unauthorized firearms. In the region, Cuba says more than 700 charged over anti-government protests. And internationally, Zimbabwe doctors, nurses seek better life abroad. Greetings and welcome to another edition of Channel 2 Headline News Updates. I am Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. On Wednesday, the government presented a massive $552.9 billion budget to the National Assembly, making it the largest fiscal plan to date. Dr. Rashni Singh, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, read the budget, which he said is expected to see the development of people, improving infrastructure, capacity, and enabling environment for overall growth of Guyana. Dr. Singh said the budget, themed Steadfast Against All Challenges, is aimed at containing a slew of measures to create wealth for all Guyanese and improve their livelihoods.
Building on the foundation laid by the previous two budgets, Budget 2022 launches what will be the most rapid period of transformation and modernization ever witnessed in Guyana's entire history. As I will shortly elaborate, sir, Budget 2022 provides for massive investment in infrastructure that will change the face of our country forever. Opening vast new tracts of land for productive purposes. Establishing entire new communities while connecting others. And making thousands of Guyanese homeowners for the very first time.
The budget provides for an increase in the Because We Care cash grant from $15,000 to $25,000 for every child enrolled in the nursery, primary, and secondary schools, both private and public schools. This will place an additional $2 billion in the homes of children attending both public and private schools. Similarly, the school uniform cash grant will see an increase.
I'm pleased to announce that we will increase that grant this year from $4,000 to $5,000 per child, and this will place in the homes of those children an additional $200 million of disposable income.
The government has proposed increasing the old age pension from $25,000 to $28,000 to cushion the cost of living for the elderly, placing an additional $2.3 billion of disposable income in the pockets of 65,000 pensioners. Additionally, public assistance will be increased from $12,000 to $14,000 per month. This will provide an additional $432 million of disposable income for 80,000 Guyanese. The budget further makes provision for a decrease in the excise tax rate on gasoline and diesel from 20% to 10% to support the manufacturing sector. The agricultural sector also received a major boost for its various agencies. All of the current programs will be continued and newer ones will be facilitated to propel Guyana to food security.
Our focus is on ramping up domestic production, promoting agro-processing and developing agro-processing capabilities, working with the region to remove all historic barriers and impediments to intra-regional trade, including some of the transport and logistics constraints, and promoting more widely agribusiness and complete transformation of regional food systems.
Dr. Singh stated that the massive infrastructure upgrades will be carried out across the country by 2022. This will aid in furthering the plethora of major transformational projects embarked on by the Ministry of Public Works. The Sheriff Mandela Expansion Program, Cheddi Jagan International Airport, Linden-Mabura Hill Highway, New Demerara River Crossing, and the Corentyne River Crossing are just a few of the myriad of mega projects being undertaken by the government. In a bid to improve healthcare, the government will be introducing a dialysis support program that will finance up to $600,000 per annum worth of dialysis treatment for every dialysis patient. Dr. Singh said this program will provide much needed assistance to almost 300 people at a cost of $180 million. Dr. Singh also announced that the monthly income tax threshold would be raised from $65,000 to $75,000, freeing $1.3 billion for taxpayers. The budget proposed that the ceiling on low-income loans obtained through commercial banks under the Low-Income Housing Loans Program, supported by the government, be increased from $12,000 to $15,000. This $552.9 billion budget is the third budget presented by the PPPC government in 18 months. It follows a $383.1 billion national budget in 2021. Continuing our coverage on the national budget, Dr. Rajneesh Singh, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, announced yesterday that a $47.9 billion expenditure is planned in Budget 2022 to ensure the safety and security of all Guyanese. To ensure the rule of law is maintained, a more robust police force will be created through training, more assets, and utilized technology. Minister Singh emphasized the importance of information and communication technology in boosting security and crime-fighting capacities. As such, $2.5 billion have been allocated to develop the Safe City program beyond the boundaries of Georgetown. Continuous training remains a key part of the force's strategic plan. A total of $120 million has been budgeted for the training of ranks at both local and international institutions. The rebuilding of the Brickdam police station is also high on the agenda. Adding to that, $99 million is being proposed to support community policing groups. Minister Singh said the aim is to add another 175 groups to the already 176 groups that have proven effective across rural and hinterland communities. The Guyana Fire Service and the Guyana Prison Service both receive billions to provide better services to the public. Stick around after the break. Surinamese nationals busted with unregistered guns and Charleston woman busted with 2 pounds of cannabis.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Survival Shopping Complex brings to you its delivery service, Shop through WhatsApp. This process is simple. All you need to do is call or message your grocery list to 613-9683 and we will select your items for you and have them delivered directly to you, even out of town. This is convenient because we can stay on the phone with you as we select your favorite brands. We're happy to do your shopping for you. Contact us on WhatsApp today and shop price smart at Survival Shopping Complex.
Taxi service, transportation for every occasion, short drop, airport, weddings, funerals, and much more. We're located at Lot H. Durbin and Vicingen Road, next to Green City Bar. For honest, efficient, and reliable service, call Kingdom Based Taxi Service at 648-5959 or 227-7937. You can count on us.
Welcome back. A pair of laborers and a construction worker were charged with larceny and armed robberies. More from Esther Sobers.
2 laborers were placed on $50,000 bail each when they appeared at the Fort Wellington court to answer charges of simple larceny on Wednesday, January 26th. 31-year-old Sean Sears, a laborer of number 28 Village, West Coast Berbice, and 25-year-old Owen McPherson, also a laborer of Tempe Village, West Coast Berbice, are accused of committing the offense against 21-year-old Anthony Ross between May 3rd and 4th, 2021. The duo pleaded not guilty to the offense when it was read to them by Magistrate P. Hughes. The hearing has been rescheduled on February 9th, 2022. And also in the courts, 21-year-old Romel White, a construction worker at Samaru Dam, West Bank, Demerara, was remanded to prison by Magistrate Annette Singh, despite denying his involvement in 2 separate armed robberies. According to the charge, on January 22, 2022, while armed with a gun, White robbed 19-year-old Vinette Khan, a painter of Better Hope, East Coast, Demerara, of one A31 Samsung cellular phone valued at $65,000. White also robbed 27-year-old mechanic Harichan Madre of South Better Hope, East Coast, Demerara, of $50,400 in cash at Davis Street, Kitty on the same day. The matter is adjourned to court on February 16, 2022. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Officers at the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit, acting on information received, conducted a search operation at Lot 6, Catley and Drysdale Street, Charlestown, Georgetown, on Wednesday, January 26, 2022. During this operation, the officers discovered suspected cannabis at the location. 55-year-old Deborah Pereira was arrested and escorted to Canoe headquarters with the suspected cannabis. The narcotics was tested and confirmed to be cannabis with a total weight of 912 grams. Investigations are ongoing. The Guyana Police Force seized another unregistered gun, but this time it was 2 foreign nationals. Esther Sobers has more.
Members of the Guyana Police Force arrested 2 Surinamese nationals who reside in Nekeri, Suriname, after they were found with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol and 11 9mm ammunition at the number 63 Beach Quarantine on Wednesday, January 26, 2022. According to the police reports, around 1 p.m., ranks from the number 51 police station, acting on the information, conducted an intelligence-led operation yesterday at the location, which led to the recovery of yet another illegal firearm and ammunition. The 2 suspects, a 46-year-old male and a 37-year-old male, who are both fishermen, were arrested. Investigations are ongoing. For Channel 2 Headline News, Esther Sobers.
Thanks, Esther. Don't go away after the break. Honduras concerned legislative crisis threatens new government, and US and NATO deliver responses to Russian demands over Ukraine. But before that, here's the bridge retraction schedule.
When you need money and you gotta get it fast, Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop is the place for that confidential transaction in a quiet and secure location. You'll get the highest value per pennyweight for your gold and also enjoy the lowest interest rates and longest payback period too. Yes, for that instant transaction to solve a pressing financial problem. That Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, 4-6 Boyle Place, that's between the Ministry of Housing on Brickdam and White Castle Fish Shop, be your first and only choice. Creative Jewelry and Pawn Shop, safe and sound, solid and secure, always there for you. Telephone 231-7878 and 223-8955.
Hurry down to Zasco on 15 North Road between Camp and Wellington Streets. Quality products at low cost for every room in your home. 65 and 55 inches high-stand 4K smart TVs. Samsung French door fridges. Black & Decker appliances, queen and king size Canadian-made mattresses. German-made pressure pots in 5 to 9 liters, 12-piece pot sets, knife sets, cutlery sets and pans, commercial fans, Samsung smart stoves, Canadian-made 3-piece recliner sofa sets, air fryers, and Hamilton Beach hot and cold water dispenser.
Furnishing your home or office has never been easier. Here at Kissoon's, our inventory of locally made and imported furniture, offered at amazing prices, will leave you wanting more. From vinyl, floor rugs and carpets, bedroom, dining and living room sets, mattresses, pillows, office desk, chairs and filing cabinets, outdoor benches and tables. We have a piece of furniture for every room imaginable in your home or office. Check out our flagship store at Industrial Site Rijnveld or one of our branches in New Amsterdam, Port Morant, Riverton and Camp Street. Kissoon's Furniture, furnishing homes for over 50 years.
Welcome back. Here now is Esther Sobers with today's regional and international news.
Good evening. Now we take a look at news in the region and around the world. Cuban officials say more than 700 people who took part in the anti-government protests last year have been charged with crimes including sedition, vandalism, theft, and public disorder. The public prosecutor's office said 172 people had already been tried and convicted without giving details. Families and activists have criticized the trials as unfair and say the sentences are disproportionate. Hundreds of people were arrested after the protests, the largest in decades. Thousands demonstrated across the communist-run island last July to voice anger over food and medicine shortages, price increases, and the government's handling of the pandemic. In Central America, as Xiomara Castro's inauguration nears, as Honduras' new president, concerns were on the rise among her supporters that a worsening legislative crisis could derail her campaign promises and their hope for a better future. Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapallo reports.
Honduras is about to swear in the country's first woman president. Xiomara Castro's historic victory in the November elections ended a highly polarized election season, marred by violence and fears of social unrest.
We are going to form a government of reconciliation in our country, a government of peace and a government of justice.
Castro's presidency marks an end to the 12-year rule by the Conservative National Party, led by controversial President Juan Orlando Hernández. But a power struggle in the Honduran National Congress threatens to derail the new president's political agenda, and analysts say the discord could plunge the country into a full-blown crisis.
We have to find a balance in order to avoid this fire from spreading. Right now it's manageable, but if we don't seek out a solution and instead add fuel to this fire, we're all going to get burned.
Xiomara Castro is the wife of former Honduran President Manuel Zelaya, who was ousted during a coup in 2009. As a presidential candidate, Castro promised to restore democratic institutions and root out corrupt government officials.
Even before the start of the latest political crisis in Honduras, addressing the many problems facing the country, like violence, poverty, systemic corruption, and an economic crisis exacerbated by the pandemic, was a tall order for the new president.
Now, with a growing rift in the Honduran legislature, the international community is calling for a dialogue. But average citizens say what they want is for the government to simply do its job.
As a young person, I am longing for there to be jobs for all young people, all adults and the elderly. That there are laws in favour of women and for men too, for children, for animals.
The incoming administration of Xiomara Castro is seen by many as an opportunity to turn the page on more than a decade of scandal and political turmoil. But if the current conflict is not resolved, it's an opportunity that could be squandered before Castro's presidency even begins. Manuel Rapalo, Al Jazeera, Tegucigalpa.
Internationally, Zimbabwe is suffering a brain drain of doctors and nurses who are seeking greener pastures abroad. As Al Jazeera's Harura Matasa reports, the government is seeking compensation from richer countries for recruiting Zimbabweans medical workers.
Colette Nyakupuka is frustrated as she leaves Zimbabwe's largest public hospital. She says she's been sick for months and still doesn't know what's wrong with her.
I was told I can't get blood tests done because the labs are not working. I now have to go to a private laboratory, but they're too expensive, so I haven't got any help yet.
Public health workers here often complain about low wages, the lack of personal protective equipment, shortages of drugs and medical equipment, as well as poor working conditions.
In some of the medical wards, you can have 2 nurses nursing 40 patients, nursing 30 patients, which is not the correct nurse-patient ratio. And this will lead to burnout of the nurses. So the nurses that are in the hospital right now, they are tired, they've got a burnout, and they wish also to leave. And what is going to happen tomorrow as far as our health delivery system is concerned?
The government's Health Service Board says last year more than 2,000 health professionals left Zimbabwe to take jobs in the UK, Ireland, Australia and the US. That's more than double the number of doctors, nurses and pharmacists who left in 2020 and 3 times the number of resignations in 2019. Zimbabwe's government says it costs $70,000 a year to train just one doctor, and it takes years before they qualify.
As developing countries, we are spending a lot of scarce resources, we call them scarce resources, in training our health workers, and only to lose them to developed countries. And so it is very ideal if such support could be given in terms of monetary investment or material resources.
The COVID-19 pandemic has made wealthy nations intensify recruitment and relax visa restrictions for health workers from poorer nations. An average worker in the public sector takes home less than $200 a month. In the UK, for example, they can earn 10 times as much. Despite repeated promises from the government to improve salaries, they remain low. The continued loss of trained health professionals is worsening Zimbabwe's already overstretched public health system. And right now, there seems to be little incentive to make staff stay. Harura Matasa, Al Jazeera, Harare.
And finally, the United States and NATO have delivered separate written responses to Russia's security demands as efforts to reach a diplomatic solution to the crisis over Ukraine continues. Al Jazeera, Rosalind Jordan reports.
On Wednesday night, the U.S. ambassador to Russia, John Sullivan, hand-delivered the American response to Russia's demands for increased security guarantees amid its standoff with the West over Ukraine. The letter, several pages long, repeats the Biden administration's position. U.S. troops go where they're wanted. Individual countries decide whether they want to join NATO. And Russia must abandon any plans to invade Ukraine. Moscow says it has no such plans.
The document is with them, and the ball is in their court. We'll see what we do, as I've said repeatedly, whether they choose the path of diplomacy and dialogue, whether they decide to renew aggression against Ukraine, we're prepared either way.
Good to see you again.
But the U.S. also offered some proposals it thinks could reassure Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government. Renewed arms control deals, improved transparency on U.S. engagement in Ukraine, and changes to U.S. NATO exercises in Eastern Europe. The Russians received a similar note from NATO leadership in a bid to head off possible conflict in Ukraine.
We call on Russia once again to immediately de-escalate the situation. NATO firmly believes that tensions and disagreements must be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy.
NATO is offering to host negotiations between the U.S. and Russia to resolve the crisis, but Stoltenberg told reporters 5,000 NATO rapid response troops can be called up in just a few days if needed. But Washington and its European allies have stepped up deliveries of military aid to Kiev, including defensive weapons. Unity among Western nations, though, has not been complete. Germany, notably, hasn't provided any military aid to Kiev, ostensibly because of its reliance on oil and gas deliveries from Russia. The U.S. reportedly is trying to address those concerns.
I'm absolutely confident in German solidarity in being together with us and other allies and partners in confronting renewed Russian aggression against Ukraine.
Meantime, the U.S. and Russia are still locked in a spat over diplomatic visas. 26 Russian diplomats and their families left Washington on Wednesday because of what the Russian ambassador calls ongoing harassment by American authorities. U.S. officials say it's now up to Moscow to respond to what the Americans consider reasonable proposals to end the crisis. But they say they're still ready to impose the harshest sanctions possible if Moscow orders its troops to invade Ukraine. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera, the State Department.
Thanks, Esther. Here now is your 3-day weather forecast. That is all for this edition of Channel 2 Headline News Update. Tune in on Friday at 5:30 p.m. for another episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, please take care of yourself and each other.